Good evening, everyone. Welcome to J B Boda Academy. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. On behalf of Mr. Gautam Boda, our Group Vice Chairman, we are pleased to welcome our friends not only from India, but also from US, UK, Europe, Germany, Africa, Caribbean, UAE, South Asia, Singapore, and Philippines. Before we get started, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who have wholeheartedly rendered their support to initiate and execute this event. We couldn't have done it without you. We have with us our favorite speaker, Dr. Shibani Belwalkar, who has been instrumental for all our webinar series, and it's a privilege to have her here with us. Not much of time that I'll take in reintroducing Shibani Belwalkar. Over to you, Dr. Shibani.
Thank you so much, Aruna. It's a pleasure. And let me see where all you are logging in from. So namaste from Nepal. Thank you, Sanjeev. It's been a pleasure to have you across the series that we've conducted with the J B Boda Academy. I hope you're home and safe. Where else are we logging in from? Mumbai. Good evening from Pune. That's wonderful. I believe we have people from Delhi. All right, that's great. Bangalore. All right, so I can see the cities flowing in. Absolutely warm welcome to all of you. It's an honor and a privilege as always to be part of this family. The J B Boda Academy has not just welcomed me, but has truly made this such a privileged journey for me across the series that we've had on the minimalistic corporate lifestyle. It is genuinely an honor. So thank you for that. Good morning, good evening from Kolkata. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you are all in. As always, it's a beautiful day. It's even more beautiful for all those mothers who are at home. It's the International Mother's Day. So a very happy Mother's Day to all those great leaders across the world. Unsung heroes, but definitely sung by all their children. So here's a warm Mother's Day for all the mothers who are true leaders and are true heroes. Welcome to our session on leadership in the virtual world. Leadership in the virtual world is a session and a discussion we're looking at today from 3 or 4 different lenses. Number one, what are those completely invincible, indestructible, timeless qualities of leaders? What are the avatars in which leadership emerges? What do we see as a leadership trait we want to put the spotlight on in a virtual world? What is E-square leadership that we're going to look at as a remedy for the crisis that we're in? And beyond all of that, simple practices to make leadership just a habit. So welcome once again to the session on leadership in the virtual world. Leader, by the way, is a word that comes from an English original word taken from the Roman heritage, which means leadan, which means to guide or to take together or to lead. It's about involving people and showing them direction. So the word leadership emerged when it was used in the context of boats and ships for the sailors and the captains on the ship who were supposed to steer the ship in the right direction. So the word has this origin. It comes from guiding. The beauty of the word guide also indicates that it comes from within, and it is a behavior, it is a mindset, it's an attitude, and it's actually a gift, the gift to be able to guide. So without waiting much, here's a picture I'm going to share with you all on screen. And I'd like you to take a couple of minutes to look at this image and tell me what is coming to your mind when you see this image. The picture, the painting is by an individual called Emanuel Lewis, who painted it in 1887 of George Washington. And there is George Washington standing on his boat as he's steering his men across the river. So a quick question, and I'm opening up my chat box to see what answers are coming in. Yes, that's right. All right, I can see an answer coming in saying founding fathers. Absolutely, he is George. I mean, George Washington was the founding father. That's correct. Where do you see leading from the front? That's right, Ajay, leading from the front. All right, leading the way. What else comes to your mind when you see this image? What are the few elements that strike you from this beautiful painting that is in the Metropolitan Art Museum in the US? The first version of this painting was destroyed after World War II, but the second image was created and is now very safe in the US archives. Whatever happens, we are together. Wonderful answer, Dhaval. Thank you so much. It's amazing you say that. All right, Rukant says vision and driving. Excellent teamwork, Govind. Awesome. Looking at the objective. Okay, I can see that. All right, management crisis. All right, you're right. Turbulence, someone sees turbulence, or okay, that's true. It's all part of this image. In fact, this painting is of George Washington in 1776 on 25th of December, when he's leading the Continental Army across the icy Delaware River onto the shores of New Jersey to prevent the takeover by the Hessian Army during the American Revolution. He's crossing the icy cold waters in the middle of the night where you can see the sun coming up, primarily to ensure that he would not allow the enemy army to cross over once the lake is completely frozen. So he's steering his men over there. Now, what I love about this image and this painting, which I have spent a lot of hours gazing at, is the position of George Washington in that boat. His position, what must have gone up in his mind, the conversation he would have had with his soldiers on that boat, telling them that it's okay if you leave the comfort of your home, particularly on Christmas Eve, but here's what I'm giving you. Some of the thoughts which I pondered over may have gone through this fantastic, absolutely inspirational man's head, is he would have turned around and told his soldiers that, fear not, don't look at the icy waters, do not worry about the oncoming shots, which obviously will be there because there's an enemy on the other shore. Trust me, because what you see across the shore is what your children are going to see. It's a taste of freedom. But fear not, because I'm here at the end of the ship and I know what I'm doing. And if there's a bullet that comes from the enemy, I'm the one who's going to get hit first. Imagine the trust that existed between those soldiers and their general. Look at the trust with the other boats that are following them in the same direction, all leading towards gaining their freedom, following one man and his instructions. Irreplaceable, unchallenged belief and faith in this one gentleman, but he led from the front. If there's danger, it will hit me first. An amazing painting, indicative of leading by example and leading from the front. Another image which has always been very special for my heart, it's an image of Alexander the Great. And again, I leave you with a question here. What do you think is going on in the minds of all those soldiers who've been trudging the Gerdosian desert in 325 BC when they're walking across with this man and they see him do this? What do you think comes to your mind when you see this image? Excellent leadership. Absolutely. That's correct. Thank you so much for that lovely response, Leena. I will not drink just like you. That's right. Parameshwaran, thank you. To win, yes. Vision. Pradnya, that's right. It means winning vision. What else do you see that comes to your mind from this picture? This also, incidentally, is an epic image of Alexander the Great's belief in his troops and his crazy desire to want to win and be strong and take the tougher route when it comes to his goals and his ambitions. Crossing the Gerdosian desert, which is now erstwhile Pakistan, they wanted to go towards the Arabian River. The desire, the intention, of course, was to invade India eventually. So they were looking at all the crossroads that they could take because Persia was their arch enemy. The Greeks and the Persians never got along with each other. So trying to evade all of that, Alexander found the longest route that he could take coming out into the open desert. 2 months, they are trudging. The horses died, the donkeys died, men were dying, resources ran out, children and women were dying. There was no food, there was no water. Eventually, after 28 days of thirst and hunger, a couple of his soldiers rode ahead and they found one oasis, filled water in their sashes and brought back. But because of the distance in carrying that, it had all dried out. One soldier saved some water in the helmet that he had carried with him, brought it and offered it to Alexander the Great. This image says, if you don't drink water and you have hardship, so will I. The discomfort of my team, the discomfort of my people, of my soldiers on foot, cannot be above my comfort. I will take no additional privileges if my troops are not going to get even the basics. Complete equality, complete belief that the suffering of my people cannot be larger than what I believe is my comfort. Lead by example again. And here's another image. Mother's Day, fabulous image of a mother as well. What do you think comes to your mind? Or have you ever, by the way, seen who she is? Because we've heard of so many other queens and princesses and warriors, but do you know who this lady is? Can I get any answers here? Whose picture do you think? Rani Lakshmi Bai? Yes, so she's a very popular one, of course, but this is not her. Whose image do you think is put up on screen? There's so many unsung women in our history, rich history of India, and she's one of those. Okay, I can see the answers coming in. That's right. So this image particularly is of Queen Abaka, also known as the Queen of Spices. So she was part of the Chauta dynasty. For all our friends joining in from across the world, India in the erstwhile pre-Portuguese and British rule was divided into different dynasties. The south of India particularly was controlled by the Chauta dynasty. The areas called Karnataka, erstwhile Ulal district. Here was a queen who left her husband's house because he gave in to the Portuguese and said, no, Ulal is my destination. It's my country. I will not accept slavery to anybody. For 40 years, Queen Abaka single-handedly protected her kingdom from the Portuguese invaders. She fought for 4 decades. And the image that you see here on screen is of Queen Abaka standing on her fortress in the balcony, observing her soldiers burning down the enemy ships. And on the right, you see an image of Queen Abaka on her horse, charging in front of her own army, attacking the enemy, actually shoulder to shoulder with her men. She very often carried her son, tied him to her back as well, not because she had no place to leave him as protection or she didn't trust anybody, but she wanted him to know what it meant to battle. And she wanted him to know what the sweet taste of freedom was. Fabulous queen, fabulous warrior princess. There is, in fact, in India, a naval ship that is named after her and a port in Karnataka that is still devoted to her, Queen Abaka. But let me bring your attention to what she's doing here. Standing on the balcony, observing what's happening, having full confidence in her troops down on the ground, and getting onto the battlefield, getting shoulder to shoulder to march ahead and show her soldiers the direction. An amazing woman. And on Mother's Day, what better tribute than to sing the praises of the women who have actually fought for our freedom. And here's a picture that left me completely sleepless for years together. This picture truly symbolizes what a mother does. And on this Mother's Day, a big note to all those leaders at home. This picture symbolizes what a mother feels for her children, what a mother thinks about protecting her children for, and how she's willing to throw her life for them. 2013, Tyler Hicks took this picture in a Kenyan mall that had faced a terrorist attack in 2013. He won the Pulitzer Prize for this picture. When he heard the gunshots, he went running inside the mall building because he said something's happening here and it doesn't look right. And there were people who were actually having blood on them, injured, running out of the mall. But he ran in because he believes in bringing stories to all of us. And this image he took because he was perched on one side window that gave him the angle here. And he picked this up and he was mesmerized. Later on, when he communicated with the lady, he found out that this beautiful mother stayed like this for 4 hours, singing lullabies to her 2 children, protecting them from the terrorist who was let loose in the mall, who was gunning innocent shoppers there. What I want to bring your attention to, gently nudge you towards, is observe the way she's got her hand over her elder daughter, and look at the way she has placed half her body over the younger son, actually a 2-year-old toddler. A lot of us have children, so you know the features of 2-year-old kids, right? They're restless, they cannot sit still. They're full of energy, full of life, curiosity. Can you imagine the pain the mother must have gone through knowing the risk that was around her and how she has ensured that the younger son remained silent and still? For 4 hours, this lady sang lullabies to both her children. She left her arm on the elder one because she knew the elder one is grown up enough to take instructions and follow what she says. But the young one needed a little bit more nudging, a little bit more force, gentle ensuring that he can be put under that little bit of comfort, knowing that, you know what, my mom's not going to let me get anywhere, so I may as well just be where I am. She beautifully balanced the ability of knowing where to push hard and where to push softly. But beyond all of that, her body was the shield for both her children. This is the essence of leadership. The timeless, immortal, absolutely invincible, indestructible qualities of a leader. They stand the test of time. They stand history. They repeat themselves again and again in so many different avatars. Your unsung heroes are in your house right now, your mothers. And this is what they do day in and day out. Put themselves in the line of duty. Put themselves where there's risk to prevent the family from any risk. And most importantly, they don't say what they do. They do that and you see the impact of that. So here's again a shout out to all the wonderful mothers in the house. Fabulous Mother's Day. It's not just Mother's Day, but just make this a complete year for you as well. Trust me, your children value you completely. So what are these unconquerable, timeless, invincible qualities and traits we're talking about for leadership? And how do they play out in the context of the post-COVID world that we are going to embrace, or rather we are in the process of embracing? How do we ensure that we put the spotlight on those qualities that need to be enhanced? And how do we ensure that we look deep within ourselves as leaders and bring to force all those qualities which we think are critical in our teams and our organizations, looking at us differently in order to thrive? What we've seen from George Washington's painting, from Alexander the Great, from this beautiful woman in the Kenyan Mall, or even Queen Abaka, can be summarized in 2 words: exemplary, equanimity. Lead by example, integrity, say what you do and do what you say. Be honest. Most importantly, don't shy away from danger. You know that if there's danger, be honest about sharing that with your troops, but tell them the danger will hit me first and then you. That's when they'll believe in you. Equanimity, calm, composure, the belief in seeing the bigger picture, the vision ahead of you, rather than getting caught up in the tangles of the challenges that are on a day-to-day ground root level. Believe in the larger picture and maintain your belief and your purpose. Most importantly, the calmness in you will ensure that your troops and your teams and your organizations are going to stay focused on what matters. Exemplary equanimity. In the beautiful words of Ronald Heifetz, leadership means getting onto the dance floor and standing on the balcony. So whilst we've looked at all these pictures of leaders emerging from wars, crisis situations showing us leaders in different avatars, or the challenges that have positioned danger and leaders thriving in that, on the other hand, I'd like to leave you with this thought. Leadership is akin to dancing. Imagine when you get onto the balcony and you observe your team members on the dance floor. You know who's dancing closer to the audience or to the orchestra or even to the music, who's not, who's on the sidelines, who's struggling, who's not struggling, how much are they enjoying what they're doing on the dance floor, and so on and so forth. You get a bird's eye view. You're also happy with what's happening down there because you think they're having a great time and they know what they're doing. But then, if you think that they need some help, you will get on right there and you will show them the moves. It's about knowing when to let go and when to take charge. It's about knowing when to lead from the front and when to lead from the back. It's about knowing when to charge ahead and show the team your direction. And it's about knowing that you can stand behind and allow them to take charge. It's a beautiful dance based on exemplary qualities and based on equanimity. Now, here's a thought I'd like us to consider, that if these are the timeless traits that we're looking at, why do we think there needs to be a different leadership quality or a different leadership avatar for the virtual world? Well, I thought about this and I did some research the last couple of weeks and months, of course, in this pandemic situation, considering the pre-COVID and the post-COVID calamities that are hitting us and the hurtling speed with which there are changes in the environment. I have a question to pose to all of you, and I'm going to open the chat box in just a minute. Do we think that the larger challenge to our leadership is in our inability to let go the physical world that we were part of? Or does it lie in our inability to quickly learn the virtual reality that we are going to be part of. Is a challenge for leadership, letting go or learning? So I'm opening my chat box for just a minute to get your answers. Yes, every day is Mother's Day. That's a beautiful thing to say, Mir. Thank you so much. Letting go. That's right. If you think it's going to be letting go, then maybe that means that we're not yet very clear about the positives that are existing, the growth that exists outside the comfort zone once we let go. So maybe it's time for us to put the spotlight on what are we going to gain, how are we going to grow if we let go and accept this new virtual world. And I understand the kind of sensibilities that are coming our way in terms of the challenges that are there on account of the virtual world are many indeed. We read articles every day of people struggling with basics. Of course, internet and technology and the absence of social interaction and so on and so forth, bandwidth and Wi-Fi, all of that is part of the gamut of the challenges that are coming to our way and we hear about on a day-to-day basis. But what happened about our growth mindset? And we all know for a fact that the virtual world is here to stay, and there are so many companies that are successful. AdventureX, for example, Smash Cafe, for example, Wix, they're all working in a virtual world. So if there's so many advantages that may exist there, particularly knowing that this is going to stay, why do we have such a fear in letting go? So I did some research around this and I said, of course, there are some virtuous realities that I think we must put the spotlight on or highlight or look and embrace. So again, in the context of the minimalistic corporate lifestyle, here are some key elements of the new virtual world we're all going to embrace. We all have to embrace post-COVID, in fact, from now onwards. Number one, it is fabulously available on demand and continuous. The virtual world, technology has made it on demand and relentless. So rather than relying on your employee, for example, if you were the leader in an organization, to visit your branch once every fortnight, or for some team member who's far off in a country maybe which is inaccessible for 2-3 days in a row. Like I used to live far away in Cameroon, which in those days used to take us 2 days to reach. If you're waiting for an employee and that 6-monthly meeting or that annual offsite to connect with your team members, well, now it's on demand. You can see whoever's sitting in Philippines, you can see who's sitting in Tanzania, you can see who's sitting in Uganda, in Burkina Faso, in Malaysia, in India, in Nepal, everywhere. And it's continuous. So you can choose to meet them today, you can choose to meet them tomorrow, you can choose to meet them 3 times in the same day. It's on demand and it's continuous. And the beauty is, it is not restricted to a brick and mortar office anymore. There's no restriction on space. So you can actually have technology at your beck and call in the format that you want it in. Beautiful. It's more, it's plenty. It's more than what we had. It's far reaching. So I'm going to share an example of a fabulous woman called Asma Mahfouz, who in January of 2011 sent one video that went viral in Egypt. 26-year-old woman who decided to oppose the regime of Hosni Mubarak. She sent a video online and she invited people to join her on Tahrir Square on January 18th to protest the regime. 4 people came on Jan 18th. She went back and she said, no, I need to really communicate with more people. So she sent the video again and she requested people to spread the message. On Jan 25th, 40,000 protesters gathered on Tahrir Square and the rest is history. One video went viral. That's the ability of the far-reaching technology that we have here. You can go across cultures, you can go across teams, you can go across projects, countries, you name it, and you can look at whatever is available to you at the drop of a hat, literally at the click of a button. It's easy to navigate. Now, I know we're going to have a lot of debate over here saying, how can you say it's easy to navigate? It's complicated and it's difficult to understand. Well, maybe that's because we're still finding it difficult to let go of basics that we used to use in the pre-COVID world. Maybe it's time to embrace and learn and have a growth mindset to gather those skills that we want. So it's easy to navigate. Steve Jobs had said this, right? That what product Apple is going to create needs to be so simple and so beautiful It needs to be an extension of your sensibilities. And Apple products are like that. More flexibility. Forget having to block your meeting room, right? You don't need a meeting room from 9 to 5 anymore, and you're hustling and jostling with your team members that I blocked it from 2 to 3 and I blocked it from 4 to 6. On a lighter note, have you had those problems? My friends all over the world who are joining in today, have you had those kind of problems where you've had an argument with someone because you blocked the meeting room and someone says, no, I blocked this meeting room first? Well, I worked in a multinational bank for several years of my life. In fact, the first 10 years of my corporate career. And the biggest stress we used to have is who's going to run and block the limit meeting rooms first. So more flexibility. You can actually chat with people. You can have meetings, multiple meetings back to back. You can have meetings at different timings. You know the beauty over here? I am working with certain teams right now who figure out their schedule in such a way that they can coordinate across the whole globe for flexibility. So for example, currently we have all schools are shut down. But in the US, there are certain team members with this bank, which I work with and I consult with. Parents are home now, of course, and children are also home. So they know for a fact they have to look at the flexibility of the virtual classrooms that the children are attending currently. So they schedule the work in such ways that there is a lunch break that is given from 2 to 4 for mothers and fathers to spend that quality time in homework and in engaging with their children, because post 4 o'clock, the children generally go out to play. So they've worked on schedules in such a way that they're offering flexibility to the users. So many friends of mine who work continuously on virtual technology actually spend those 2 hours in working out, in having long lunches, and so on and so forth. Flexibility. If you think you have better connectivity with your technology in the early hours, great option. If you think you have better technology in the later hours, great option. See the flexibility coming our way. Rather than believe that you have to catch the train or commute to avoid traffic between 8 and 10 in the morning, and you have to rush out and you spend 2 hours and 3 hours. A lot of us in India, in Mumbai in particular, have to plan our day and navigate our work based on traffic rules. That's a bygone. Look at the flexibility we have now to have absolutely focused, productive work come out. And most importantly, the ability to look at multiple work streams. We can have visibility on so many projects. We can collaborate in a beautiful fashion, because what happens is that today what you're working on is not restricted to you in your laptop, which you have to send across to someone else through an email or upload on a cloud and so on and so forth. There are possibilities and there are programs that allow you to work together on projects, multiple work streams. Now, if we are looking at such fantastic advantages of the virtual world, then let's think of what are some of the consequences we need to focus on, or some of the outcomes we have to arrive at when we look at leadership in the virtual world. So what are some of the outcomes of leadership? Well, the first outcome of leadership in a virtual world is about reversing the dilemma. Again, coming back to the option of letting go and embracing, we're struggling. A lot of us are struggling, no doubt about it. But here's what, the first step that a leader can demonstrate is the ability to embrace that change, convert the dilemmas into advantages. So every time you see challenges coming up in the form of complaints of discomfort or conversations leading about the inability to accept the change, here's when the growth mindset needs to kick in and talk about the advantages that arise as a result of embracing this new situation and the challenges coming our way. For example, you have certain employees who are finding it extremely difficult on account of maybe lack of space or the number of people at home to be able to contribute to a work, maybe even bandwidth, which is a big issue again in certain countries. Look at ways of getting that individual to additionally contribute to different activities which can support his current work. Can they be involved in CSR activities for that matter? Can they do things to participate in other responsibilities of the organization? Can you schedule his work in such a way that he can contribute when the others are not contributing, so it allows for bandwidth in terms of your LAN or WAN networks? It is a continuous desire to convert the dilemma into an opportunity. Number one outcome of virtual leadership. We have to figure out ways of getting this outcome out, and we will see that in just a minute from now. Constructive depolarizing. the beauty of the connect that we're going to have as a leader on a virtual platform is humongous and absolutely tremendous. So today, if we can connect with our colleagues in Southeast Asia, if we can connect with our colleagues in the North of America, South of America, in Africa, Asia, and so on and so forth, then we need sensibilities about their cultures. One active role that a leader will have to actually conduct in the virtual platform is to deconstruct and demystify and be sensitive about constructive engagement across cultures. I'd like to elaborate using a diagram over here. This is a 2x2 grid, and being a faculty very often, I see myself referring to graphs and visual representations of ideas, because 95% of our brain functions on visual signs and symbols. So it's a great way to look at this and understand it. And I will give some personal examples here as well. The grid talks about cultural context. There are certain countries and cultures which are confrontational and certain non-confrontational cultures, certain emotionally expressive and certain which are not emotionally expressive. For example, India, where I'm currently located, is non-confrontational but very emotionally expressive. We're an emotional race. For everything we celebrate and for everything we share in each other's sorrow together. It's all about the expression of the feelings and the emotions from within. They not just show in our face, but they show in our mannerisms as well. So we're expressive in that format. On the contrary, Germany is not, but Germany is highly confrontational and emotionally unexpressive. So think about a conversation that may have to happen between a leader who is in India managing a team in Germany, or a German leader managing a team in India. Not just that, but imagine a conversation between a leader who's in India managing a team in Germany and a team in, say, Spain or Italy, which is emotionally expressive and confrontational, but not as much. Understanding the cultural sensitivities will make the leader's ability to mitigate confrontation even better. In fact, it will enable the leader to surface those issues, deal with them, and move on to productive business. Of course, I have to map a couple of countries going by my affinity from my origin. So here are some more examples of different kinds of countries and their roles here. And I'm trying to get my screen, which is frozen. There we go. So I grew up in Cameroon for most of my schooling years. Cameroon is confrontational, emotionally expressive. Burkina Faso, where I was born, confrontational but unexpressive. Senegal, again, where I spent some time in between the borderline. The reason I share this with you is when I started consulting, moving from my corporate career into the research I did, I saw the examples time and again and the mistakes leaders were making when it came to jumping to conclusions without the necessary background of understanding cultural differences. As a virtual leader, here's an opportunity for us to create that impact with our teams by understanding the subtle nuances in how people behave. India, for example, by race and by history and the different kinds of invasions that have happened here, have made us a fairly submissive race. Not just that, but we are very accepting, open-minded, yet submissive. So we believe in hierarchy and command and control. The US is not so. It's a very open culture. In fact, command and control is absent in most organizations there. There's a lot of trust-based, open engagement that happens in cultures like that. So a leader's role or the outcome of his leadership style in a virtual world should be to ensure that there is cultural integration and sensitivity. Another outcome we need to focus on, in fact, the third, is the ability to be transparent, open and authentic about what's happening, what's not happening, what's a possibility, what is not. Now, here's a point I'd like you to ponder over. When we are face to face, there is an energy exchange because communication is not just with words, it's with facial expressions, gestures, body posture, breathing, and what it's called also the energy circle around us. In India, there is a concept called Pancha Kosha, 5 sheets, which talks about the complete presence of a leader, your executive presence. The executive presence can be felt, can be sensed. How do we replicate that? Through our transparency and honesty on a virtual platform. Because if you can't really feel it, then it's difficult to believe it. So as a leader, being able to create that sense of transparency comes with open and authentic communication. We have to remember that we're translating our feelings, our energy, our thoughts through a machine to reach somebody else and create that impact on them. And if that is the case, then we have to rely heavily on our facial expressions and our words. If the words can be open and authentic, your teams will believe you even if they can't see you. You need to inspire credibility and trust. And we know how to do that. We'll come into that in just a minute. But one of the cornerstones of a leadership impact in the virtual world is clearly transparency. Rapid prototyping. Look at the speed that's coming our way with technology. We can race through what we're trying to do. There are multiple platforms. My personal example, when we were getting onto a platform called Canvas and Metal for our college educations, I teach at several business institutes, and part of the role of a faculty or a professor is also about creating question papers and exams and so on and so forth. So I was slightly hesitant because we were used to doing things in a particular way where it was always automated and somebody conducted the exams and so on and so forth. But having to do it by oneself and getting onto a technological platform to do it made me wonder whether I will be able to do the right amount of justice to what's happening. And lo and behold, I got onto the system that we were using, completed the examination question paper checking really fast, realized I was doing a far better job at what I was doing had I had to leaf through reams of paper checking them. Suddenly enjoyed it so much that I was able to speed through a lot more during the course of a day than I would have if I was doing it physically. So for a leader, whatever projects are happening right now in the virtual world with your companies and your organizations and the different teams, the minute you see something click, can you start prototyping it rapidly? That's what technology is for, right? Speed, ease, and most importantly, reach. And beyond all of that, what is the common purpose we're aiming for? It's difficult for somebody in your organization, some team member who's probably sitting in the interiors of Rajasthan, who's a critical member of your team, to have connection and belief in what you think is your renewed purpose in these post-COVID times. It's difficult for him to not constantly see the values on the wall that we have in our conference rooms and our office entrances. How do we remind them of those day in and day out? How do we ensure there is a constant reflection on the purpose that our organization is established for? If we can keep these 5 tenets of virtual leadership in mind, the platform for virtual leadership, the outcomes we want to achieve, we will be able to enhance our leadership impact, keeping the invincible traits intact, enhancing the way they are perceived by our teams. So let's look at what we have now on our leadership framework. There are so many frameworks on leadership. In fact, we joke amongst ourselves as faculty that there are as many frameworks as there are leadership gurus. You have Fred Fiedler's theory, you have the trait theory, you have the contingency theory, you have Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, you've got inspirational, transactional, transformational leadership, you've even got situational leadership, you've got agility, you've got agile leadership, you've got adaptive leadership, you've got servant leadership, you name it, and there are frameworks. I've had the good fortune, of course, over the last decade to go in depth into understanding what leadership really means. And my firm belief, based on research, are about the invincible traits that will come in different avatars. So the avatar may change, but the DNA remains the same. And those invincible traits are the ones we're going to bring back, but enhance in a way that they can be transformed into the way our teams will perceive them. So whilst we'll keep the crux of who we are and what we stand for firm, through the test of time, pre and post-COVID, we will ensure that we can change the way in which it is perceived. And we can do that with the E-Square leadership framework. Enhance, elevate. I'd like to spend just a moment over here to reflect on the meaning of these two words and why enhance and why elevate. Why not the two? Why not just one? Elevate is the ability of taking upwards to another level, of rising, raising, moving upwards. Enhancing is scale, to enlarge, to do more of. Elevate in our context is internal, intrinsic. Enhance is external, extrinsic. Elevate is what we think leaders should do within themselves when they reflect on what they need to enhance as their own qualities. And enhance is what they need to do as behaviors and actions that can impact their teams, inward, outward. So let's take a look at our E-square formula, our E-square leadership framework. Going with the minimalistic perspective again, easy to remember, easy to follow, and most importantly, extremely meaningful, which will stand the test of time pre-post-COVID. Elevate. What do we need to look at as far as our mindsets are concerned? When we talk about mindset, we're talking about the way we operate internally. Self-operating system, as it's called. What are the cues you give yourself in your mind, in your conversation, to yourself, in your thought processes, your belief systems, your values, your purpose, your belief in who you are? What are the cues you give yourself? Well, what cues do we need to give ourselves in the context of the virtual leadership framework? The number one cue we need to give ourselves and enhance and put the spotlight on is compassion. Compassion and empathy. We cannot do without compassion and empathy in this world that we're in. The only quality that is helping humanity survive even today is compassion and empathy. The strangers on the road, the corporates who were running after profits earlier, who've given that up to chase the destiny of humanity, the leaders who've given up all their wealth to help mankind survive. Compassion, compassion and empathy. The ability to understand, feel, give, kindness, generosity is needed. And the ability to understand that if somebody is having a bad day, somebody is going through a tough time, somebody is not able to log on onto your webinar on time, somebody is not able to contribute with the outcome or their work at that point in time, it's not because they're slack or they're sleeping at home. Maybe there's an issue. Empathy. The compassion and empathy levels of a leader will determine their success in today's world. Elevate that. And compassion and empathy cannot be faked. It needs to be truly from within. So it's a readjustment of what our true north is, what we stand for, what we believe in as people, ordinary people. And of course, Trustpire, the combination of the two. Trustpire means trust which inspires. Just having trust is not good if it doesn't convert into an action eventually. And trust is interesting because trust releases a hormone which is called oxytocin. It's called the trust hormone. It's a hormone between a baby and a mother as well. So if we can ensure that we give trust, we will get trust. Trust begets trust, but you have to give trust to get trust. So the more we focus on genuine trust and our ability to believe that people will bring their best selves to work even at such point in time, the more you will see people bringing in their best selves to work at this point in time. Trust begets trust. But the more we can give trust wholeheartedly, the more people will be inspired to see that trust. It needs to be genuine and it needs to be from within. Visibility. In the virtual world, we're relying heavily on how people are going to interpret us. Visibility not just means coming on camera or being available to your teams day in and day out, but visibility is the ability to be seen despite not being seen. It's the ability to ensure that your team members know that you are going to be with them at all points in time, small or big, large or small challenges, you will very much be there shoulder to shoulder. It can come from your communication. It can come from your chat box. It can come from messages. It can come from the way you make phone calls. Let's not forget that ability. It's about reaching out and constantly being there with your team members in a subtle way when needed and absolutely loud and clear when needed as well. It's like what Queen Abaka did. When she didn't need that visibility, she was there on the balcony, but her soldiers on the ground knew that she's there, she's watching us, not to keep tabs on us, but just to be there in case she needs to know when to jump in. And she was there, right there with them in the front, leading the army. So they could see her right there as well. George Washington, look at his position. He was visible. We need to replicate that through our E-squared framework as a visible leader in times of crisis, particularly. So make yourself accessible. Have an open day with your laptops, for example, where your chat window is open for any employee across the world to come and just say hi to you. Have those impromptu coffee sessions, even online, where you don't necessarily have to be executing a work meeting or an official conversation, but you're there online for anyone who wants to ping you and say something to you casually. You can replicate that. The growth mindset can do that. And enhance velocity, speed. Speed is the greatest boon that technology has given us. And if we can utilize that to scale the way we are going to perform our projects, we've got it. So rather than looking at the challenges which are posed in front of us on account of some of the changes happening, let's look at the advantages and use the speed that it's given us to progress. Well, great said as an E-square framework, but nice question that may cross some of our minds. And I'm just going to minimize my screen for a minute. Your comments are beautiful and they're coming in, and I'm delighted to see what all you're saying. Hello from everywhere. Namaste. Yes, we have the WISH framework, bringing to life the E-square leadership framework by simple steps, practical practices to make a habit. Bringing to life E-square leadership through simple steps in the minimalistic perspective again. For example, water cooler moments. Looking at visibility, looking at compathy, looking at transpiration. Let's have a water cooler moment that can be recreated virtually. Have those casual conversations with your team members and allow for unofficial chat channels to be open and permissive. Let there be conversations happening which do not necessarily have to be moderated by the leader in the organization. In fact, encourage them. If something untoward comes to your notice, get that unofficial grapevine to deal with that as well. It's interesting to know that bad news travels faster than good news. But if you are going to open the channels of communication, then allow communication to thrive with good news and keep pumping that in through those channels. Get your greatest supporters to converse about topics that add value to each other. Allow those water cooler moments, those impromptu sessions with your team members, even in the virtual world. So start water cooler moments. The I for introduction to families and environments. Friends, interestingly, whilst we think that the virtual world has distanced us physically, I firmly believe it has brought us closer. Because now suddenly the masks we may have worn as a person in work and person at home have melted away. You are what you see on screen. You are in the environment which you are in. You are in your home in the way it is. And you will have your dogs barking in the background, the pets like mine was right now. You will have your toddlers walk in at those moments. You will have your spouse yell at you to come and join them for dinner. You will have the TV in the background, and you will have all those noises that are part and parcel of our life. So introduce your family. Let them also come and see, as it's commonly said in India, kya meeting hai? You know, it means to translate, what is this meeting all about? So a lot of, I've heard this comment coming in by a lot of my partners saying that your family members are very curious to know, what is this meeting that you're having all day? And how come you have a meeting all day? Well, bring them in and introduce them to your colleagues all across the world. Let them see who your family is. Let them see you in your most vulnerable moment. Leadership is about vulnerability, displaying who you are in a transparent way. And what better way than showing them your surroundings and what makes you who you are with your family, your friends, your pets, your environment. Skip level meetings is a very powerful tool, particularly in today's context. You may not have had a chance to schedule those meetings with your teams across the globe. Maybe what you can do is do that compulsory right now. Ensure that you can move and meet with as many people as you can at this point in time. It gives you a chance to resolve differences. It gives you a chance to put it all together as well and understand what people's strengths are. So much of visibility, so much of velocity, because now you can talk about multiple projects with multiple people. So much of a chance for empathy, so much of a chance for perspiration. And last but not least, the H of wish is a human library. Start the process of encouraging colleagues across the globe to request for time from each other. For example, if you want to meet a leader across some other part of the organization, if some team member of yours idolizes, wants to interact with somebody, let them put time on that calendar and use it in the process of a human library. The way you go to a library and pick out a particular book you'd like to read or spend time with. Let's do that virtually. Encourage this practice with your team members, because you know what that will do? It enhances collaboration. The way we would want to see somebody, or when you're working with them, you want to have that face-to-face interaction saying, oh, I see, now I know who I used to talk with on the phone for so long. It automatically increases that bonding. Let's do that here virtually as well. We can ensure that we meet with our team members, we collaborate. It'll ensure greater collaboration. It'll ensure greater work task efficiency. It'll ensure greater visibility with each other and collaboration. Projects will start working together even faster than you can imagine. So all our E-square outcomes can be achieved by the human library process, the WISH framework. I know I've exceeded my time, but okay, I'm loving your comments that are coming. Morning from Casablanca. That is amazing. Casablanca is one of my favorite cities. So is Mexico. So is Cameroon. Hello from Cameroon. Hello from Nigeria. And as I mentioned, that we have the opportunity of introducing our family members. One moment, please. On this wonderful opportunity of Mother's Day, I can see one of my family members coming in. Come say hello. I'm on this opportunity of Mother's Day there. Yeah, please say hello to the most important members of my life. Thank you so much. My daughter, who's in college, visiting us from Emory, and a new member in our family called Dooley, who's our pet beagle. So there you go. You see me and my family in this space. And the summary of what we've done from now, everything that we've looked at over the last few minutes. Taking a quick hygiene check. Aruna, am I audible?
Yes, Shibani.
All right, great. Just doing a quick check. I had my family walk inside to see what's going on with you and what is this meeting on a Sunday evening. And I had to thank my daughter for loaning her mother to me for this point in time. Great. So on a quick note now, to stitch together what we've looked at for the last 45 minutes, in fact, we began by understanding the timeless qualities of leadership. What are some of the features of leadership that have stood the test of time, that will not change, that every leader will imbibe despite the circumstances? What makes them stand tall? What makes them stand straight? What makes them stand in a way where the world looks up to them? Generations look up to them. Exemplary, and of course, the ability to be equanimous. George Washington, Alexander the Great, Queen Abaka, and this beautiful young mother in the mall in Kenya. Timeless, invincible, unconquerable. Get onto the dance floor, stand on the balcony. Leadership is when you choose when to get onto the dance floor and you choose when to get into the balcony. You know when you have to let go and let your teams dance, and you know when you have to get there and show them how it's done. It's a virtuous virtual world. Shy away not now from what the virtuous virtual world brings to us. Embrace it. It's not scary. In fact, it's amazing. And it's right there for our taking. On demand, far reaching. Look at the cultures you can talk to. Look at the people you can see. Flexibility and speed. It's an amazing instrument and a platform. Let's look at some of the outcomes we need to achieve. We ensure the dilemmas convert into opportunities, bring cultures together. We have to ensure we're sensitive about different kinds of cultures, being expressive and confrontational. Look at transparency and look at ensuring there is speed and, most importantly, common purpose. E square, short, simple formula for leadership in the virtual world. Post-COVID, leadership needs to be E square. Enhance externally, elevate internally. It's about the way you see yourself from the eyes of the others. Wish, simple steps. And on this note, I'm going to summarize this up on the honor of Mother's Day and the fabulous mothers around. This is a short story that has been symbolic for me on the whole journey of leadership. The story is an old mythological story, and here's my take and my interpretation of this story. It's about a pregnant king, the title of the story. King Yuvanashvara was an old king during ancient India. He was the only king during the times of Mahabharata who was not able to fight the war. And he was really upset and depressed about that, primarily because all the other kings in Mahabharata were able to go and fight the battle. But somewhere he felt really sad and not able to go there because he did not have an heir to the throne. So that was a challenge. There were lots of priests that were brought in from across the whole globe. I'm hearing a voice. Aruna, is that you?
Sorry, please carry on.
Okay, sorry. So King Yuvanashvara, as I mentioned, was one of the few kings of Mahabharata who couldn't go for the war, and he felt very less compared to the other kings. Priests were called from all across the nation to conduct a puja, a ritual. In India, rituals are called pujas, where you invoke the blessings of the Lord. We have millions of lords, so we invoke some or the other Lord at all points in time. So he had a large puja that he conducted to invoke the blessings of the Lord to ensure that he would get heirs to the throne. He had 3 wives. Unfortunately, none of them could give birth to a son or a daughter. Frustrated with this, one evening he was sitting there just after the large puja was conducted. Restless, uneasy with thirst and hunger and dissatisfaction, depression, he's pacing around the entire palace grounds when he stumbles upon some of the remaining offerings of the puja. In India, those are called holy water and some food, which is generally looked at the offering of the god. Prasad is the word that we use. So he saw some holy water and he saw some prasad, food, which is supposed to be symbolic of the blessings of the Lord. So thirsty, not understanding what to do, in the middle of the night, he gulps down that water that has been created from the holy puja. And strangely, he becomes pregnant. That water was actually created and blessed for the queens to be given to them the next morning. But in the middle of the night, restless with thirst, uneasy, he drank that water. Now, mythology says that eventually he went on to deliver a child from the right side of his thigh. Of course, the kingdom was horrified. Who's this weird king? And what is he? What kind of a king is this man? I mean, how can he give birth to a child? That too from his thigh? It just doesn't make sense. He was ridiculed. His wives ridiculed him. The child, the young prince who was born, refused to have anything to do with the king because he says, I don't understand you. You're weird. You're not my mother. You're not my father. I refuse to even talk to you. So he started distancing himself from the king. The king was truly depressed. In India, again, it's a tradition that once you have finished most of your duties as a young man with your family and your children, you proceed to the forest for renunciation. You give away what you have. It's a sacrifice and you move on to the next journey of your life. When the prince was 19 years old, King Yuvanashvara now decides, it's time for me to abandon this kingdom, my queens and the prince who's anyways never acknowledged my presence. I'm going to leave and go. So he proceeds to the kingdom gates, waiting for the gates to open, and he starts walking down the road. The queens, the prince, his ministers, everybody is around in the palace waiting to say goodbye to him because it's a very traditional ceremonial letting go of. And as he is walking, King Yuvanashvara, who spent those 19 years as a parent, wondering that why his son would not even refer to him as a father, is now weeping in his heart, saying, it doesn't matter to me, my son, the prince, whether you call me mother or you call me father. Just acknowledge my presence as a parent for you. For me, this is symbolic of the invincible traits of leaders. It doesn't matter what name you get. You could be a mother, you could be a father, you could be a manager, you could be a senior vice president, you could be the CEO, you could be the founder. If you are true to what matters to you and what you believe is the impact of what you do, you're a true leader. And on that note, finally, I'll conclude that leadership is not in the exertion of your leader's prowess. It's in the emotional experience of its essence by the followers. Thank you very much, all of you. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure. J B Boda has been extremely open-minded and so generous in having me over time and again. I have thoroughly enjoyed my conversations here, and looking at the overwhelming response that I have received on my website, which is theoryofpurpose.com, on my individual website, the emails that have been flowing, your comments on this website, they have just kept us going. Extremely encouraging. Of course, a lot of what I've shared with you is a very minimized, concise content of our full day programs that we run. But nevertheless, I hope you have been able to take away the message of leadership in the virtual world. And on that note, a happy Mother's Day to fantastic leaders all around. All the mothers, believe you me, everyone is experiencing the essence of your leadership. One need not wonder whether the rewards are coming or not. The rewards come in the way your children smile at you. Thank you so much. Aruna, on that note, back to you.
Thank you so much, Shibani. Whilst you were going through the leadership impact, so I have one very personal question. What has been the biggest leadership impact in your life?
Interesting question. I will try to summarize this quickly for the interest of our participants in the time, of course. Rather than having a particular episode or a particular individual who's been impactful for me in my leadership belief, there was a Sanskrit shloka which remained with me across the last decade and a half, and it's been my guiding North Star. And it goes like this, and I will translate it for my friends across the globe. Rupam drishyam lochanam drik, tat drishyam driptu manasam, drishyadi vrittahi sakshi, dirgevanatu drishyate. What it means is that when the eyes see an object, there's a difference between the object and your eyes, because it's your eyes that are seeing them. You know what you're seeing because your brain is processing what you're seeing. And you know that you are able to see because you're breathing. And because you're breathing, you know that you're alive. Now, this, according to me, is a fabulous distinction of what leadership means when you demonstrate it actively and when you choose to be a leader in the truest sense. If one can understand the difference between doing things for the sake of doing it, activity and action, and one can understand that sometimes the leader's role is just in being who he or she truly is, that itself will come out as a leadership essence. That's been my biggest lesson over the last decade and a half.
Thank you so much, Shibani. On this note, I sincerely thanks all your support and your guidance throughout our webinar series. You have been a great inspiration for all of us over here. Our audience have been reaching out to us personally and asking how they can get in touch with you. There are a few people who still wants to connect with you, and I'll connect with you separately on that note. But yes, I would like to invite our group vice chairman to convey the vote of thanks and do the closure of this webinar series on minimalist corporate lifestyle. Gautam sir, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of J B Boda Group, I would like to thank Dr. Belwalkar, Speaker of the Day, for all the valuable information she shared with us today on leadership in virtual world. The current situation that we find ourselves in this global pandemic, bare necessities is all that we need to survive. This clearly emphasizes the theme of our webinars, Corporate Minimalist Lifestyle, wherein we had topics incorporating emotional well-being, health and wellness, talent management, unlearn and relearn, mindfulness, and leadership in the virtual world. Today, as we conclude our series, we at J B Boda Group wish to thank all the keynote speakers, moderators, panelists, our team members, and all participants who have enthusiastically engaged with us on this platform. To our audience, we are gracious to see our webinar series being appreciated by you all. This motivates us to organize more interactive events. We look forward to engaging even more deeply with you in times to come. It has been a great pleasure. Thank you very much. Take care and stay safe. And before I say bye, once again, wishing everyone happy Mother's Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boda. It's been an honor to be here. And I must say that I am truly overwhelmed by the comments that have come to me time and again, the messages that have been flowing my way. Of course, I'm deeply honored that you took this opportunity to personally introduce me even on social media platforms. It's people like you who make this completely worthwhile. Sunday evening is normally not heard of for us to get together and talk about a topic which seemingly seems so distant to our day-to-day work in that sense. But it takes tremendous courage and, of course, tremendous exemplary moves that you have demonstrated. I must thank you for two things. One is, of course, the flawlessness with which this was executed. I think it's commendable. You have truly embraced the virtual world in ways like a lot of people, others are struggling with. It's been flawless. The support's been great. Your team's been fantastic. Your personal involvement, as I keep saying with everyone, that leadership is about showing up, has been truly motivating. So thank you so much. It's been an honor, as I mentioned. Our website, theoryofpurpose.com, drop in your comments. Send us the emails. We are only too delighted and excited to know what you thought about our conversation, and see you on the other side very soon again. Happy Mother's Day once again to all the wonderful women. Thank you, Aruna.
And the last comment, Aruna, before you take over, thank you, Dr. Shibani, for all your kind words. And also would like to announce to all our viewers and the audience who has been consistently supporting us that we'll be coming out with the second series very shortly. So stay tuned and stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you so much, audience. Gautam sir has just announced the huge responsibility again for the part 2. So we will be working on it and we'll ensure that we come back to you with exciting topics. Wishing you all happy Mother's Day. Have a very good time with your mother on this Sunday. Thank you so much for coming on this Sunday. Your commitment we truly appreciate. Thank you so much. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you very much, all.